Ooh. It's Halloween, kids. Get some damn candy. Yeah. This is COFOH Live Undead. I am your host, Daniel Crosier, and I am joined by Bryan Bonner and Bob Lewis. Oh, yeah! Something on my face. Hey, Bryan. Hey, Bob. How are you?
Can't complain.
Not nearly as energetic as you are.
No, I'm not even going to try to top that.
Just get a little bit more candy in your system, right?
Yeah.
If by candy you mean whiskey and a little bit more you mean several bottles, I might be able to.
All right, hook up that IV.
That we could do.
Nice. Gentlemen, it's great to have you on. I saw you at an Exorcist screening last week with the new Believer film, and then
I don't remember that. I'm trying to block it.
I don't blame you. And then, of course, working with you guys on Colorado Festival of Horror again this year. Good Lord. I still got brain fog from that.
Yeah, I agree. I'm still burnt out from it.
Yeah. And then,
speaking of.
Nice. I
came prepared.
I just got a shirt that says pew pew. So, wrong team. But guys, you guys got a wonderful new book out, the case files of the Rocky Mountain Paranormal Research Society, Volume 1. Oh my God, this is a nice girthy book too.
It is a thick monster.
And that was after I worked very hard to figure out the appropriate font size and margins to get it down from the 500 pages it was going to be.
Nice. It sounds like it's going to be like a Game of Thrones tomb right there.
It's getting there.
Yeah.
Except I can write faster than George Martin does.
Yeah. True. I think, good for you. That's a good skill to have.
No, we definitely don't have an end in sight on it either. So there's that shared.
Nice. Gentlemen, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you come from and how you got interested in doing like paranormal research. Bob,
lost a bet.
I always say bad choices of drinking, but go for it, Bob.
Well, honestly, I think Bryan's story is a bit more interesting. Mine is just that I'm a lifelong horror nerd.
Yeah.
And I like spooky things, and whatever switch in the brain makes people run away from scary things, mine goes in the wrong direction, and I wanted to go and find the ghosts or the aliens or the monsters.
Nice.
And I have a science background, so I like to look at it from a scientific, skeptical but not cynical scientific perspective.
Okay.
And I'm a history nerd, so looking into the histories of the places gets me all kind of excited too. So,
nice.
Horror, science, history.
Nice.
You end up doing this kind of stuff.
If you get into this and you don't become a history nerd, there's a problem, because it's just an accidental thing that happens because the history is so important to the ghost stories and just so interesting regardless of the ghost stories.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that you'll notice in the book is there's a lot of ghost stories in there, but in some of the cases the history section ends up being a lot longer than the ghost story section, just because there's such a rich history on some of these locations.
Yeah. Bryan, with you, I mean, you're pretty well known throughout the community here. Yeah, as one as a historian, as you guys have been talking about. But what really kind of drew you in to this type of research?
Let's see. I'm going to use my stock answer because I like back when I was a wee one, as they say. My mother was a huge horror movie buff.
Cool.
And my father owned his own business, so he wasn't around all the time. He was working. So she wanted somebody to watch horror movies with, and strangely enough, I got flagged for that one. And, when you're 5 years old and watching The Exorcist, it's not always a good mix. So she had to say, okay, well, it's not real.
Yeah.
This has been made up. This is how movies are made. This is how special effects are done. This is how you turn somebody into the horror nerd that you see right here. But then I started watching these movies years later, and they're like inspired by actual events based on a true story. Like, oh, now hold on a minute. I didn't think any of this was real.
Yeah.
So I started looking into it, and it was strange because at the time, 25 years ago, there wasn't a lot of people doing it.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't the pop culture phenomenon that it is now. So it was like, okay, let's start a group. Let's get this thing going so we can find out, what's the truth. And yep, like I say, 25 years bad choices, and here we are.
Nice. So, and that's how the Rocky Mountain Paranormal Research Society got started.
Exactly.
Nice. Is it Bryan, Bob? Is it just the two of you, or is it a larger group?
We have some people that we work with, but we try to keep it small. A lot of groups. I mean, we've got 4 or 5 people that we kind of work with together.
Yeah,
fairly regularly. But
the thing is, most paranormal groups kind of drive themselves on membership, and if we did, we've found that the more people you have at an investigation, the more likely you're going to be tainting your own evidence. There's too many people to control, too much noise, too much going on. Whereas if it's just a couple, handful of people, you're fine.
Yeah.
Bob can give you a good example of an audio recording that we listened to that is a great example of why you don't bring lots of people.
Ooh.
Yeah, this was an audio tape from a different paranormal group that they'd left their audio tape at the place, and then when we came in, they didn't come back to claim it, so we listened to it. And one thing about paranormal investigation is just it's not as sexy as it sounds. A lot of it involves putting the headphones on and sitting there for hours listening to nothing happen or watching nothing happen. And as I was doing that, I noticed that this particular group, the ghost could have walked right up to the microphone and introduced himself and started reciting Shakespeare, and you never would have known because the investigators themselves never shut up long enough to actually record anything.
Oh,
they're complaining about the software on their computers and just jibber jabbering through the whole thing. And who knows what's actually happening in the background because they never shut up long enough to recording of what they were supposed to be there to record.
Oh, that's too bad. So, kind of would that be fair to say, kind of an amateurish approach that they took?
I'd say it's unfortunately the predominant way that they did it.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, it is amateurish, but a lot of the people that call themselves professionals behave in an amateurish sort of way a lot of the time.
Exactly.
Right. With the new book, can you guys talk about some of the case studies that really stood out that made its way into the book?
Well, there's a lot of good ones. So there's just to start off, it's 27 chapters. along with a couple of extra essays. Some of them overlap a little bit, and some of them aren't like famous cases. Some of them are just sort of media analyses or experiments we've done. So it probably ends up being 24, 25 of the real cases, something like that. And I we probably don't have time to list them all, but just to mention a favorite, one of my favorites is Cheeseman Park, Denver's Cheeseman Park.
Yep.
Which a lot of people know at least part of the story, but for those who don't know, the very short version is before it was a park, it was a graveyard, Denver's first cemetery. And before it was Denver's first cemetery, it was a cemetery. It was a Native American burial ground for the Arapaho. They gave it, depending on your definition of the word gave, to the city of Denver in a land grant. And their conditions were, you know, here's the land. First of all, don't put a graveyard there because we've put a graveyard there. But if you do, only bury people about 3 feet deep rather than 6 feet because our people are under there and we don't want you to dig them up. The city of Denver honored half of that arrangement. They did immediately turn it into a graveyard, but they did bury them 3 feet down.
Oof.
Over time, the graveyard fell into disrepair and they decided they were going to turn it into a park. And there's a whole long history. That's almost like 50 pages of the book, so I'm shortening this a lot.
Yeah.
But to make a very long story very short, the process of removing the graves to move them to a different cemetery to turn it into a park, I think the word is cattywampus. Everything that possibly could go wrong went wrong. They had grave robbers, a lot of them. The people who knew who their people were got their people out and relocated them. But Denver was a pass-through town at the time, so a lot of the people buried there didn't have anyone left to claim the bodies. So they had to hire an undertaker to exhume all the bodies, move them off to a different cemetery. Turns out there was also a casket shortage at the time. So he's been remembered as the evil undertaker for breaking apart all the bodies and putting them in children's caskets, which is what he did. But it wasn't him that did it. It was, well, I mean, he did it, but he was acting on the authority of the city of Denver. They told him, we don't have enough caskets. We got a surplus of these children's caskets. We'll pay you extra. Figure it out. And so that's what he did. And at the same time, the Chinese community were relocating a bunch of their people back to the homeland in China, but they only wanted the bones. So they're scraping the bones clean because this was traditional Chinese religion. You want the bones. You don't really care about anything else.
Yeah.
So all of this is going on. The newspaper of the time, the Denver Republican, publishes a headline that says "The Work of Ghouls" and details the whole thing. And the city said, enough is enough. If you're in, you're in. If you're out, you're out. We're sealing this thing. We're just going to put the park over whoever's left.
Okay. Wow.
So there are estimates vary, but around 3,000 bodies still under Cheeseman Park. And occasionally they pop up for various reasons, partially because they're buried shallowly. We got involved when they were redoing some sprinklers in the park. And they dug up some bodies. And Bryan, do you want to explain how we got involved at that point?
I'll just give it a short version here. We found out about it. Normally, you don't find out about that kind of a thing.
Yeah, particularly because there are natives under there. They want to keep it quiet.
They always keep it really quiet when people find bones there. But this time, I'll leave this part of the story out because it's a long one. But we found out about it. So we got a whole...
It's a funny story, but buy the book to get the details.
Exactly. So in finding out about it, we called up the medical examiner's office and said, hey, this is Rocky Mountain Paranormal, and we found out about these bodies. They hung up on us. So we came up with a plan. And the plan was, we called them up and said, okay, don't hang up. We know that you found some bodies over at the park. We would like to bring in some forensic anthropologists and students to examine the bodies, to be able to identify them, to work with them, to maybe give some history to them. And they fell for it. So we got to spend time going into the coroner's office and actually working on the bodies.
Wow.
So an experience that you
Speaking
don't.
of which,
There's one right there.
there's one of them in the book.
And that's something that you just don't normally get to do in the paranormal world, is you hear about the bodies, but you never actually get to see them.
Yeah.
And then people ask us that question. They're like, do you talk to the dead? Well,
Right.
yeah, a lot. They never answer. Except this once. This time they gave us a lot of details about their lives and what they did, who they were. So it was the one time we were truly able to talk to the dead and get a response.
When you say, get a response, is that, like the condition of the body, some of the artifacts that were with them, or did you actually were you able to record audio or, have a little bit of that?
We were able to figure out the history of these people based on what the forensic anthropologists discovered.
Nice.
So, we knew the ethnicity, the possible jobs that these people may have had based on their injuries,
Right.
maybe what they'd done throughout their lives, the conditions, what they died of, things like that. I was absolutely blown away by what you can come up with just by having bones.
Yeah.
And
it's important that it was just bones. There was very little soft tissue. There was one little piece of brain lining was the only soft tissue they found.
Yep.
And also not very many artifacts, and that's because they were so shallowly buried. Everything had just gone away.
Right. Okay.
Well, and that's one of the many reasons that they were having problems with caskets is every casket that was underground pretty much had to be replaced because it had disintegrated.
Nice.
Along with the people that were in it.
Yeah. Oh, geez. That's pretty intense. But Cheeseman Park is has such a history. With Denver. Wow, it's cool that it's in there, and you've got like Bryan or Bob was saying, 50 pages just on that case.
Yes, something like
Yeah. Can you talk about maybe another case?
Bryan, your turn. What's one of your favorites out of the book?
My turn. They're all my favorite, so we're just gonna have to start at the beginning and work our way through. I don't know. There's so many in there that I'll bring up one that Bob will like though. We had
I know which one you're going for.
Yeah, we had a private investigation. Yeah, find the picture.
On it.
Oh, I figured you had a print. We had an investigation at a private residence, and lots of bizarre claims going on in the home. But after spending a considerable amount of time listening to ghost stories and hearing all these people tell me about the one haunted location, and then having to go into that location and sit in the dark with them because they were afraid to go to bed without somebody to protect them.
And there's Bryan sitting in the dark.
Yep, there I am sitting in the dark.
Nice.
That's not the picture, but I'll let you finish the story, and then I got the picture.
So while I was sitting in the dark, I had the distinct feeling of something kind of slapping me in the face.
Okay.
I don't know what it was. There's nothing on the video except me looking like a complete moron.
Yeah, what you see on the video was a video version of that still image of just Bryan sitting there.
Yeah, just me sitting there. Well, that's actually from the video.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I don't know what it was. It just stopped all of a sudden. But I'm not going to jump to the conclusion that it was a ghost, even though I like to say I was slapped by a ghost. Because I do have to take into consideration all of those factors I was leading into. I'd been up for 30 some hours straight. I'd been eating junk food all day. I'd been listening to people tell me ghost stories about this room. And now I'm going to go sit in the dark in that room and wait for the ghost to do something.
Yeah.
Not a good psychological setup. But at the same time, it makes a great story. And, okay, maybe something hit me. But we have an artist interpretation of this that is.
We had a great artist named Aaron Bordner who did internal illustrations for the book for the private investigations, because we didn't have a lot of photos to share because we don't want to publish identifying information for the private cases. So we had artists illustrate, and he illustrated Bryan getting slapped by the ghost, which is one of my favorite pieces.
That's great. Oh, that's an awesome illustration.
Yeah,
I need to frame that and put it up on my wall.
he did some fun.
Yeah,
work.
nice. Wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah, pretty intense. So it sounds like that. When you go in and do an investigation, being in the right state of mind, and having maybe not eating so much junk food, or getting enough rest.
That's a
Would you say that's key?
You're speaking weird words there. I don't understand food and rest.
So you haven't learned that lesson, huh?
Unfortunately, part of the problem is you're doing these things usually overnight,
Right.
and sleep deprivation and junk food just kind of comes along with it.
Okay.
But you need to at least account for that when you're thinking about what might have happened when you get slapped in the face by the ghost.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
And yeah, that's the important thing. I mean, regardless of what happens or what we see or hear or people tell us, we still have to stay on the fence and be able to look at it critically without jumping to a conclusion, or we're not going to get real results.
Yeah. When you're doing an investigation, when you're kind of looking at all the different avenues that whatever the situation might present, do you find more often than not that it's you don't usually find something like paranormal? There's usually some type of reasonable explanation.
Well, there's a good mix of there are, I would say, probably about a third of the time we just don't see whatever was claimed. And it didn't happen while we were there. Probably about a third of the time we see something happen or hear something happen or whatever. We can document it, but we can find the rational, natural explanations for it. And then probably another third of the time it's something weird happens, and I'm not ready to say it's a ghost.
Right.
Because the ghost did not come up and introduce himself, but something really weird happened that we have at least not yet been able to explain.
And I think that's one thing that really makes us different than a lot of other groups is we're willing to say we don't know what it was, and we're going to keep looking into it without automatically jumping to the it is or it isn't.
Right.
We just want to know more, collect more data, and try and figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
We've had some that we looked at for years and eventually managed to figure out, just because the conditions had to be just so. So it took years to figure out what was happening. Exactly. And there are others that we've been looking into for a long time, and we still have some mysteries that we have not, at least not yet, been able to solve.
Yeah. Wow, that's pretty wild. Before we went on live, we were talking about how thick the book is and stuff, and that I think Bryan, you mentioned that you've got enough. You guys have done enough investigations to fill 3.5, 4 books.
We've fully outlined 3, and we're working on the outline of the 4th.
Oh my gosh!
But also, like we were talking about before we started, that just doesn't even really scratch the surface of all the claims that are out there. So there's more than a lifetime's worth of work that we're still working on. Yeah.
The for the stuff that you're still working on, are there any cases that you can't wait to share with other people some of your findings?
We tend to, if we have weird findings, we tend to go out to get people's opinions on them, so people tend to find out about it right after it happens. But a lot of our private cases are, we're scraping the information off of them to make them private. So I think those are going to be fun to share.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And for sure, there are some that we have not worked on yet that I'm itching to get into as soon as we can find the right permissions to get into the locations.
Nice.
Absolutely.
I still want to do a paranormal investigation at the Titanic.
Of the Titanic?
But apparently just being a billionaire isn't enough to safely get you there. So that's a bucket list item.
Clearly, they cut corners.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know who we don't use as the transport.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if being a billionaire isn't enough to guarantee safety on an expedition, I'm a poor boy. My pocketbook is not going to get me there.
Yeah, I get that.
Join the Navy.
I don't think they would have me.
Yeah, well, who knows? They might take anybody at this. Wow, that would be pretty interesting. Doing an underwater investigation. Have you guys ever attempted something that dealt with a body of water, like a lake or a river?
Not to any extreme.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are some lake monster-esque cryptids in Colorado that we've lightly touched on, but yeah, water's kind of a unique thing. And while Colorado has a lot of water, it doesn't have a lot of paranormal water, I guess.
Okay, interesting. So Colorado doesn't have a lot of paranormal water. Would that relate to just ghost stories happening out on those, or is it like some type of ley line? What are those, ley lines? That sort of thing?
Well, I'm thinking more of, we investigate any type of paranormal claims, so we're not talking about just ghosts. We're talking about, weird sightings of UFOs or cryptids.
Right.
So, if there's a lake monster or a Bigfoot of sorts, something like that, that definitely takes us out into the wild where we don't normally do an investigation.
Okay.
And it's just a lot harder because ghost stories tend to be confined to a specific building,
right,
or maybe a specific graveyard or something. But if you want to look into Bigfoot, who the hell knows where that guy's hiding out?
Yeah, you gotta really map out his migration patterns.
Well, and that's the problem with any cryptid is you really have to look at the claims and maybe current eyewitness reports,
right,
to see where you can even start looking for them.
Yeah,
because it's a big outdoors out there, and the cryptids aren't that big.
Well, with something like Sasquatch, when it comes to cryptids, there's different versions of Sasquatch that exist in every state in the U.S. Is there something like a cryptid that you've investigated that's a little bit more unique to Colorado?
Not that we've really investigated.
Okay.
We've got a few in the works, though.
Ooh.
We have stories of Tommy knockers in some of the old mines.
Right.
We have Bigfoot sightings. The one that's sort of unique to Colorado that I've uncovered just in the lore is called the Slide Rock Bolter.
Yes.
Which is like a land whale that would come down the mountain and attack the miners. Yeah.
No, I as an artist, I've been asked to illustrate cryptids, and I usually, when it comes to Colorado, I usually illustrate that guy.
He's the Colorado unique one for sure.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there haven't been any sightings for something like 150 years, so there's not much for us to look into.
I say we have a movement to adopt a squonk.
What's that? Adopt a what?
A squonk.
Ooh,
I think you need to explain.
Yeah, Bryan, I'm not familiar.
The squonk is a cryptid. Where is the squonk? I don't remember.
I think it might have been Pennsylvania, maybe.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Or maybe New England, or somewhere in that sort of direction.
This is a cryptid that is reportedly so ugly. It's wrinkled. It's got warts on it. It's very self-conscious.
Oh.
It'll only come out at night, and it avoids water at all costs because it may see its own reflection.
Ooh.
People that hunt it, they can find it because they can follow this trail of tears behind it because it cries all the time because of how depressed it is.
Jeez.
So much so that if you capture it, it cries itself into a puddle, basically. And then the saddest part of them all, if they do end up in the water, they only have webbed feet on one side, so they just swim in a circle until they drowned.
Oh, geez. Wow. That's wild. This sounds like the Eeyore of cryptids.
It really is.
It is.
They have a big festival for it, and I don't know. It just seemed like my spirit cryptid. So
Nice. Man, so there's an actual festival for this thing. Man, this
Yeah,
thing I just heard of.
it's Squonkpalooza.
Nice.
I'm actually.
I think it's in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Yep, Johnstown, Pennsylvania,
Wow.
and it is Squonkpalooza.
Man, that's cool.
They have competitions to compliment the squonk to try to cheer it up.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You just tell it. You try and bring it down from its or bring it up from its sadness.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of talk it off the ledge. It's like, it's okay, buddy. You don't have to swim in circles.
But yeah, Colorado has, I mean, a fair share of cryptids, but the bolter is definitely the big one.
Yeah.
But we're pretty high in ranking for Bigfoot sightings too.
Right. Yeah. What is it? Isn't it like the Pacific Northwest? On through to Colorado.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we are a UFO hotspot,
Mhm.
or as they say these days, UAP.
Nice. The UAP. Yeah, that's a new term, right? I'm not familiar. I'm not up to.
It's the same thing, but it's unidentified aerial phenomenon.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, UFO just had bad connotations to it. So when the feds decided that they were going to start looking into it again, they changed acronyms on us.
Okay. Nice. So, when it comes to like UAPs, have you guys come across any interesting investigations?
A couple. There's in the book we've touched on a little bit, sort of just getting around the edges of those in this first volume. There was one in Lafayette that turned out to be almost certainly airplanes carrying heavy loads of water to put out some fires.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of been the thing with us, though, is most of the local UFO claims, because while we like to look at the historical ones, especially with UFOs, UAPs, the more current, the more likely you're going to be able to get some data because you weren't there when it happened and you're not going to be there again when it happened. So, the more recent the claim, the more likely you're going to be able to find any kind of data about it. Yeah. And everyone that we've approached, even though some of the local media may not have agreed with us, we've definitely found explanations for them.
Okay.
There was also, we're not going to have any kind of time to get into it, but there was footage of an alien looking in a guy's window.
Yep.
That we recreated the footage to prove that it could be done without a huge Hollywood budget.
Right.
Which also led us to wade into a political issue. There was people trying to create a governmental body called the Denver Extraterrestrial Affairs Commission.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
And we ended up wading into that. So that'll end up being like 200 pages of a future volume of the book because that's a whole long story. But so we've waded into that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of the UFOs are just, it was a meteor or it was a plane or whatever, and people just didn't recognize what it was.
Well, right. People generally are just, with any paranormal phenomenon, people are culturally biased to find something. They want to see it. They expect to see it. And with all the TV shows and the books and the movies and everything, they're constantly being inundated with this is what you're going to see, this is what it is. And the minute they see something they don't understand, they don't even question it. They just jump to that's what it was.
Right.
The UFO I saw in my youth, though, that was an alien. 100%.
Nice. Yeah, it's a lot of people don't seem to apply a lot of critical thought thinking in terms of like these situations.
No, that's rare, and it's rare on both sides. You get the hardcore believer who just won't even entertain that it could be not a ghost or not a UFO.
Right.
And then you've got the hardcore, very cynical skeptics that won't even entertain that it could possibly be.
Right.
And neither side is using critical thinking. They're fitting the evidence to a predetermined conclusion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whereas when we look at something, we have to be neutral and say, could go either way, and we'll try to figure it out.
Yeah. Just kind of go where the information takes you.
Exactly. But a lot of people don't want it to have an explanation. So if they do find one, it's kind of depressing for them. I mean, I'm kind of like, it's a Scooby-Doo moment. It's like, great, we've just discovered this thing and it's really cool.
Yeah.
A lot of people, their perspective on it is, well, you just took all the magic out of it.
Oh.
And I sometimes I get that.
I understand.
Usually the explanation ends up being pretty fun.
Oh, it is. And that's the thing. I mean, from the inside perspective, being able to discover what it is that it really was is just as good as finding a ghost.
Right.
Almost. If I actually found a ghost, I would be all kind of excited.
Well, that's true.
Wow. That's pretty interesting. When you guys, like a new case gets introduced to you, how do you decide, what case, you go after? Like, it sounds like you've got so many different case studies to work on at this point. Is there like any type of criteria that you apply?
We really have to base it off of a few things. First of all, when we get an initial contact, usually it's an email, and we have to look at that and go, A, does this sound like the person is on the level, or maybe they have some sort of a issue?
Right.
Which is fairly rare, but you got to watch out for it.
Oh, it definitely happens. But then we have to look at the case as we're talking to the people even and say, is this something that we may be able to just get people some help to cope with it? Or is this something that we may be able to go in and document?
Right.
If somebody tells me I'm all freaked out because I saw my dead grandmother at the end of my bed 25 years ago, I can't do anything about that. Enjoy the fact you saw your dead grandmother. That's all I have.
Yeah.
If they say it happens every Thursday at 2:30 in the morning, we're there.
Got a schedule.
So we've really got to filter through what's most likely going to be something that we're going to be able to witness, document. And, that's not always the case.
Right.
Beyond that, honestly, we'll look into anything that somebody brings to us as long as we think it is something that we could document. On the occasion, and usually, honestly, people coming to us keeps our calendars pretty full. On the occasion that we reach out to somebody because there's a case that we want to look into, it's either just because it's an interesting story or enough people are talking about it or people are asking about it that it's sort of made it to the top of our to-do list, and we reach out and see if we can set something up.
Nice. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I think, this stuff is, so incredibly fascinating. I mean, it's definitely, outside of my realm of understanding. I'd love to, spend a night with you guys. I guess, kind of sitting around doing nothing and listening for something, over the recorder. But
or sometimes we'll, when people get tired and they need to take a break, we'll send them into the most haunted room and they get to sleep in the haunted room and be bait for whatever's supposed to be there.
Nice. That's usually my role. It's like, hey, you've got a little girth to you. Go get fed to this thing. Just my luck that the rock bolter shows up and stuff. Like, well, what happened with Dan? Well, he's now
Worth
wealthy.
it.
We went fishing. Land that's always enjoyable. So for everybody that's tuning in tonight, make sure you go and get your copy of the case studies. It's a fantastic read. Yeah, case files of the Rocky Mountain Paranormal Research Society, Volume 1. I'm glad you went with the shorter title.
Yeah.
It only fills up a quarter of the page.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
just the name of the society is most of the title. That we couldn't really shorten that part. So then it's like, okay, just add case files.
What was it for the two of you? Like, this is kind of a new endeavor, right? Writing a book together. What was the creative process like for that?
So it started as when I had come on board with the society a few years back, and then after pandemic ended, we were talking about what's next. What do we do to sort of get back into things? And one of the thoughts that came up was, we've got all these stories. Let's put out a book.
Yeah.
Originally, it was a book, and then as we started outlining, it's like that book's gonna be like this. This is not a book. This is a series. So we divided them up into volumes. And then the writing process was mostly Bryan's notes from all the files, because he's been at it for longer than I have.
Yeah.
And then I took his notes. I wrote up a first draft, and then it was back and forth, correcting and getting everything just so.
Nice. With that in the future volumes, have you guys figured out it's like, okay, what works, what doesn't work for you?
I think it was a good process. I mean,
yeah, I think it worked.
Nice.
It worked the first time, so let's not break it.
If it's not broken, don't fix it. Nice.
Right.
Cool.
I think on some of them, some of the stories are going to require more direct, active, sort of sitting by side collaboration, just because some of the stories are better documented than others in terms of what we have on video and versus what's just sort of trapped in Bryan's memory from some of the ones that I wasn't present for.
Yeah.
But other than those, I think the process works.
Cool.
Well, that's an important part to me too, is to get it out of here and into the world, because I want people to know these stories, and 50 years from now, if I'm not here, they're gone. But if they're in a book, somebody has a copy of it.
There's one that involved performing an exorcism by using Fruit Loops.
That's true.
That for a whole bunch of reasons that involve us not taking somebody else's name in vain, that's never been really written down or documented. So,
wow,
that'll be one that we need to get out of Bryan's head and onto the page before it gets lost.
The premise sounds amazing.
It was as ridiculous as it sounds.
We have so many wacky adventures that we've done, and a lot of them, and I think Bob had a good point. I think there's going to be a sub book in this series that's just crazy things that happened while we were doing this.
Nice. Yeah.
Nothing to do with the paranormal, but just
the misadventures.
You put yourself into
Bryan.
Weird situations. Was that?
The Misadventures of Bob and Bryan. Sounds like it should be a comic book series.
Yeah. It's like you put yourself into a weird situation and weird things are going to happen.
Yeah. Wow.
Well,
that's pretty cool.
I found myself saying that over the years. It's just like all of a sudden I'm like, how did I get into this situation? Why am I here? This is so cool. It could never happen again.
Right.
2 weeks later, wow, this is really cool. But it just never stops.
But you have to remember the very important advice. When we were actually, it was on the same case that involved the Fruit Loops. We reached out to a psychiatrist for ethical advice to see, have we gone too far with this thing?
Ooh.
And he asked one question. He said, was it funny? Yes, it was. Then we're okay.
Then you're fine. No problem. That's hilarious. Yeah, I can't wait to read that. That volume. That sounds like it's going to be pretty uproarious. God, that's cool. Bryan, Bob, we're about out of time. Where can people go to follow you?
Too many places.
Yeah, they can. We're at RockyMountainParanormal.com. We're on Facebook. We're on what was known as Twitter. We're on Threads. We're on
Instagram.
We're on Slasher. You can
for Rocky Mountain Paranormal, just sort of search for Rocky Mountain Paranormal on whatever social media of preference, and we're there.
Exactly.
Nice.
Plus, we have the publisher, Polymath Press, which is where you can go and get a copy.
And that's scrolling across the bottom of the screen, and also look for Polymath Press on whatever social media.
Exactly. Or we also have a few other things. Bob has a YouTube channel, Phobophile.
Phobophile. PHOBOPHILE.com.
It's all horror reviews and interesting horror stuff all the time.
Reviews and commentaries of horror stuff, yeah.
We have a podcast, Do You Like Scary Movies, at doyoulikescarymovies.com. And we interview people in the horror genre, actors, producers, directors, musicians, artists, authors, anything weird, we're interviewing the people.
Nice.
And I am also the co-host of another podcast called They Did It, which is a conspiracy podcast. So we talk about all the weird conspiracies and the truth behind them and the weird stories behind them. And that's at it's at theydiditpodcast.com.
Oh, wow.
We're everywhere.
There's no shortage of things that you guys do. Good Lord.
No.
Too much. One more project. I'm going to be ready to go hairline for hairline with Captain Picard.
Exactly.
Oh, nice. Can you let everybody know when and where is your next appearance?
That is a fine question. Let me get my book out because I can't keep track of them anymore.
I think our next appearance is the library.
Oh, the Denver Public Library.
No, it's
not the Denver. Let's see.
It's
looks like on Monday the 16th, we're doing a youth workshop at the Anything Huron Library in Thornton.
Oh, cool.
And then I'm losing track. I think there's another one somewhere in here.
We're doing the Fort Collins Library.
Oh, okay.
Towards the end of the month.
Nice. It being Halloween, you guys are just chock full of your dance card is pretty full up.
A particularly exciting one on Saturday, October 21st in the evening. Nice. At 4 Mile Park in Denver. They're doing a Spirits and Spirits Festival where you can drink and do all kinds of haunted things.
Oh, cool.
We are performing the Victorian style classic seance in the attic of the supposedly haunted 4 Mile house.
Wow, that's going to be cool.
So that's an exciting one. And look up the 4 Mile Park. You can find tickets for that.
Okay. And
then there's plenty of others that I'm forgetting. Greeley Library on October 26th.
Oh, nice. I think we were just at the new Greeley Library earlier this summer. It is amazing. They remodeled it, and it's got a whole like Meow Wolf section and a whole big education and what do they call those? Basically jungle gyms and stuff on the inside for all the kids.
Interesting.
So yeah, it was.
I've not seen it yet, but I'm thinking we might have to move our lecture into the jungle gym.
Yeah,
as one should. I think that would be the neighborly thing to do. Oh, that's
And
cool.
you can watch Bob break his hip on the playground equipment.
Well, just get a surrogate. Okay, kid, you're me. Climb up there. This is Game of Thrones rules. Bob, Bryan, it's been nice to chat with you and talk about the book and all your exciting adventures. I can't wait for the comic book adaptation of this to come out, where you have your Scooby moments. Man,
you're joking, but we're actually talking about that.
about a comic book version.
Maybe not of the whole case files, but some kind of a comic book it's probably a few years down the road, but we're thinking about it.
Well, that's cool. I know a cover artist.
We know that guy.
Yeah. Oh, very cool, guys. So for everybody out there, make sure you go to polymathpress.com, pick up your copy, Case Files of the Rocky Mountain Paranormal Research Society, Volume 1. And when can we expect Volume 2? When do you think?
I'm not promising, but my goal is COFOH next year.
Ooh, oh my God.
And try to make that an annual tradition to launch at COFOH, at least for the first couple of years. Nice.
That's amazing.
We'll see if we can get it done in time. That's a whole other question.
Yeah. It's a big endeavor, and I think well worth it. So, thank you for, sharing your stories and enriching us with your case studies. I think it's it's a fun read.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Stick around for a few minutes while we sign off. But to all our sponsors that support us, to Mutiny Information Cafe, if you're going to start a revolution, make sure you're caffeinated. To our friends at Hellfire Entertainment, thanks for rebroadcasting us on your social media. Our friends at Groovy TV, and of course Alien Donut Films and Angela Joseph Productions. Thanks for supporting us, and my producers Lily Fisher, Amanda Armstrong, and Stefan Santa Cruz. Thanks for all your help. And to everybody that tuned in, hey guys, happy Halloween. Have some fun. Be safe. Be good. Be kind. Help each other out during tough times and stay spooky. Have a good night, everybody. We'll see you